Once again, we send my war rig to collect gasoline from Gastown and bullets from the bullet farm. Once again, I salute my Imperator Furiosa, and I salute my half-life water boys who will ride with me eternal on the highway. Oh, oh, oh. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Comics and Cinema Club. I am your host, Immortal Matt, and this is my esteemed co-host, Rumungus.
What a lovely day!
Do not, my friends, become addicted to water. It will take hold of you, and you will resent its absence.
Whatever. Anyway, we're talking about George Miller, okay?
Yeah, we're talking about probably one of the most badass grandfathers in all of filmmaking, to be honest. This man is up there in age, but he is still out here kicking ass and making movies. He is a legend, and it's crazy when you look at his filmography because he is 79 years old, and he's just sort of a legend when it comes to filmmaking because he started off with what many consider to be one of the greatest action movies, or a good starter for the action franchise, Mad Max, and then he did one of the greatest action movie sequels, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. And then he did some other films. He did Twilight Zone, the movie, which has a bit of a curse and some bad rap on it. Then he did Beyond Thunderdome, Witches of Eastwick, and then Babe, and then Babe Pig in the City, and Happy Feet, and Happy Feet 2, and Mad Max Fury Road, and 3,000 Years of Longing, and then Furiosa, Mad Max. So point is, this man is very diverse in his filmmaking.
Yeah, dude's got range, and I appreciate that. But there are a whole lot of constants across his films that we're going to go into here just to break down really what makes this director so special.
His action scenes are fantastic in most of the movies that he does. It's just fantastic how you look at it. But first of all, going into the Mad Max series, which is what he's really well known for. And I mean, the first Mad Max is basically just, he's a cop whose family dies. He's kind of like the Punisher, honestly. His family dies in what's described as being like a soon-to-be post-apocalyptic wasteland, which is just Australia on a bad day. And then he did Mad Max 2, which was a no-hold-barred post-apocalyptic movie, took like no shame in it, and was just a really easy, simple story. There's nothing super complex about it. It was just simple and easy. And there's barely any dialogue in it, too. I mean, and that's something that goes for most of his films. There's barely any dialogue in any of them. I mean, Matt was saying that he thought that, Happy Feet was the most dialogue-heavy movie out there.
It's true. Most of that film is relying on the comic stylings of the actors.
Yeah. The other thing, too, is just that, then you have Beyond Thunderdome, which is, his third movie didn't really do as great as the Mad Max. I mean, some people like Thunderdome, but I just think it's kind of a weird one. And then he did probably what many people are arguing to be one of the greatest action movies of our time, Fury Road, which is just a phenomenal and really well done movie. And then Furiosa, which Matt saw, I have not seen yet, but I really want to.
For what some people can sum up to be like a major chase movie, Fury Road has a whole lot of intense action and fun characters with only so much dialogue. That's part of his strength, honestly, because a lot of the appeal of his films, I find, are the world itself, like the big world building, like the history of everything and how little he actually shows about it. Because let's be honest, do we really want to go into the socioeconomic history of a gigantic road-based cult and all that, where at a certain point water is considered a controlled and addictive substance, or do we want to just have fun? And honestly, I just want to have fun, and that's what George Miller does. For all of his fun stunts, for his intense action, it's fun. It's not. It rides the point of becoming gratuitous, but ultimately it comes across as just a really fun experience and a whole lot of creative camera work and actual real stunt work lends its way to a really, really fun time, ultimately.
Yeah. And I mean, I was talking with my sister because she loves Mad Max Fury Road. And she was even like, I'm not really the biggest fan that it's just a chase movie the whole time. But even as a chase movie, it's a very grounded and very simple story. But Fury Road just does a great job of showcasing everything. And the same thing can be said for Road Warrior. Road Warrior is basically just, I need to get gas. He goes into this town. You got to go do this side quest for us. He does the side quest, and then he gets roped into the larger story. I mean, if anything, Road Warrior and Fury Road are pretty similar in that regard. The plots are very simple. They're very linear. Nothing really complex happens with them. But at the same time, he did a great job with just showcasing the action and making a lot of that the highlight of it. And there's just like a charm to the action too, because he has a habit of doing really sped up footage, but it doesn't like it could for like an 80s style film come across as being like cheesy and kind of but he made it work in the sense that like you could tell it was sped up, but it still looked like authentic in a sense. It still fit.
It helped match the film's aesthetic, since everything in Road Warrior and Fury Road is meant to be a huge adrenaline rush. It's meant to really make you feel like you're just moving fast. You're on a roller coaster almost. Like I would feel, I don't want to call it like a roller coaster movie like Scorsese describing Marvel. I don't want to come across as disrespectful like that, but I feel like this has adrenaline of a roller coaster. You know?
Yeah, it really does. And more to that, like he just did a great job with keeping the momentum and everything of it going. So you never like feel like bored or anything. And the other thing too is that each fight scene is its own story. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. It's very cohesive, it's very put together. If anything, it like stands out against a lot of other stupid movies that try to force in quick cuts and stuff. Because I was watching Fury Road, and something that I learned is that a lot of his films use center sort of style filmmaking, if that makes sense. So a lot of what's shown, the thing that's going to be in focus will be in the center of the screen. So for example, if you're holding a chain, the chain will be in the center of the screen, as will what's in behind that chain, because the chain is in focus. It's the subject. And then going in line with that, you then get into the action, everything in the action. Even if there's a quick cut, the quick cut is on purpose. It's meaningful. It's meant to showcase something. There's this really quick cut where Nux, the war boy in Fury Road, his arm gets pulled. And it's such a quick cut, but it's important to the scene because we're seeing him getting dragged around. He's starting to wake up. It's important. I think in comparison, when I was in college, we had to watch some clips. And while we were watching the clips, we would clap our hands every time there was a cut. So we watched Birdman, which is a very long take style film. There's not very many like cuts in that. We watched some other stuff, not very many cuts, so we'd only clap like once or twice. I watched Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, which not the whole movie. I would like that. I'm never watching that whole movie. It had a scene where basically they're fighting in this laser like grid, and they cut so many times. It felt like I was applauding how many times it was cutting. It was just all over the place. It was like, and I didn't want to be clapping for them. But with this movie, like when they cut, it's on purpose. Whereas with that movie, when you cut, it was just because you want to build up the tension. You want to make it seem cool. And I think that that's something to take away. Is that the right editing can make or break a movie. If you edit a movie right, you can edit it really well and make a Mad Max or Mad Max Fury Road or Road Warrior. If you edit it wrong, you'll get, say, Rebel Moon or Resident Evil films where they just do quick cuts all the live long day for no real reason. And that's that can be put into any movie in modern society too.
Not to mention, a whole lot of his films I've noticed use a lot of high crane shots and Dutch angles and fast zoom ins, especially his more recent films. Like I noticed that heavily in Furiosa. Mm-hmm. But that sort of filmmaking, it's like, imagine all of the best attributes of Sam Raimi, Tobe Hooper, who else? Crane shot, Tobe Hooper, that was, and then who did who was that chick who did? Nah, I don't want to meet that chick. Who's that lady who did Titus? Who did Titus?
Titus? What do you mean?
Hang on, let me look this up. Julie Taymor.
Okay.
Take all of those best attributes and like put them together, and you have Rich Miller's style. Honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, in general, like again, his filmmaking style is pretty solid and really great. And it's also just a gentleman too, or gentleman, or whatever you say, that he knows how to do practical shit. Like he is a master at doing practicals. Some people might say well, you use a lot of CGI in Furiosa, which, from what I've heard, I don't know, Matt, did they use a lot of CG?
It's kind of hard to tell because it's honestly really well done. But yes, for like
Okay.
big city shots, they use CG for sure.
Okay. I heard that like some of the CGI was in some spots, but
I didn't notice.
I've also just heard that in general, he has different styles for different things too. But mostly he uses practical effects. I think the only movie that he doesn't really use practicals for was Happy Feet. But I mean,
That's a cartoon. It's supposed to be.
Not exactly gonna go to the Arctic and film a bunch of penguins dancing. But even like Happy Feet, he does a great job of making it feel different, making it feel like intense and everything, and just making it like a different movie. And I think that that's something else that you can lump into George Miller as being a great filmmaker, is that he's just very flexible in what he does. Because again, like when I opened, I was doing it as a joke with Mad Max 2, and then Babe Pig in the City, all that stuff. But honestly, it's crazy that you go from making. I don't really know if any other filmmaker has really done that. I mean, I know Scorsese did Hugo, but like I don't think anyone else has sort of that range with style filmmaking. Typically, a lot of filmmaking people do. Like Hitchcock would do a lot of thrillers. Spielberg would do a lot of family style films, or that had like certain themes to it. But Miller's directing style and his themes are all over the place with a lot of the movies.
And yet you'll notice a lot of his style and aesthetic carrying over across these films, which is something I very much appreciate. It's a very much a Sam Raimi situation. You could tell when he directed it, because take Happy Feet for instance. There's one scene where you get like this dark sweeping shot of the Antarctic and then Aurora Borealis or whatever, or wherever penguins live, some freaking skylights or whatever, and it makes you just go in awe and wonder, and you're like, oh yeah, the director of Mad Max did this, huh? So it really that sort of style is something that carries across, especially in Happy Feet is when it's incredibly noticeable. Not to mention, again, the world is what really draws people in, because you'll notice a lot of the times the main character in his films are often the least interesting. It's just sort of what happens to them that really, really brings them in. Because let's be honest, how mad really is Max? Like, it's more like everything around him is more mad than he is, because he just seems kind of chill and is just reacting to everything, you know?
I mean, this is Mel Gibson we're talking about, so I think he's pretty mad. But I get what you're not wrong. That like, I mean, we got a whole spin-off movie about Furiosa because of how interesting of a character she was. And then we were rewatching Road Warrior just to kind of give us a feel for it. And we were like noticing like the whole helicopter pilot guy was kind of like, he was a really interesting character, and he didn't even have that big of a role. And then the humongous guy who didn't have much of a, the main villain, he was also like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. Same with like Immortan Joe. And I mean, how much of a, I don't know if like, I don't know if Joe was like his real name in the apocalypse, or like before, and he was just like, I'm gonna keep it, or if he was just like, I will be the Immortan Destroyer. Wait, what's your real name? Joe. You gotta keep Joe, man. Immortan's just a title. You gotta keep Joe. And it's like, is he just stuck with that? It's just kind of funny, honestly. I am the Immortan Joe. So
Maybe he's a fan of Angry Joe.
oh, it's possible. He might be a fan of Angry Joe.
I'm kidding. There was that's another thing that's interesting about Mad Max. The apocalypse happened in the 80s, so you're not going to get a whole lot of advanced future tech here, but he uses that to his advantage. Like with every single stripped down truck or car, it's honestly really, really creative. Like this is all a very creative apocalypse, and it's something that's very much unique to it. So many apocalypses take place like decades into the future, and you have all this advanced robotic machinery and all that. It's just everywhere. But with Mad Max, it's such its own style that once you see it, and you instantly recognize, oh, this is a Mad Max parody. Neat.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
find that
don't know if like this isn't like a theory. I just like it when people are like, maybe the apocalypse hasn't actually happened, and this is just Australia doing its own thing. Maybe Australia just ran out of the water, and the rest of the world was like, we'll leave them alone. They're fine. But you're right in the sense that like there's so many unique things that they throw into these movies because you have like robot arms with Furiosa and robotic tech, like the big giant pipes in the mountains with the waters and stuff. But then you also have like just jalopies and Volkswagens driving around the desert and slamming into one another and tricked out stuff. And then you also have things like, the pole guys going over and going back, going over, going back, and then like of course, probably one of the best character in Fury Road, the guitarist with the flamethrower, who's just like, he's so cool. And it's like, it's such a unique thing that they were like, hey, we're just going to throw in a guy with a flamethrowing guitar, no reason, just, hey, it looks cool. So
I want to know. I want a spin-off movie on that guy. What is his deal? I want to know if he got blinded like Kanan did in Rebels with somebody striking his eyes with a lightsaber. Because I could see that happening for a character that badass, honestly.
I mean, what would his name even be, though? Oh,
I don't know.
His name is Doof Warrior. So Doof Warrior the movie.
Doof Warrior.
I'm all for that. I'm all for
me
Doof
too.
Warrior. Give me my Doof Warrior spin-off, Matt. George Miller.
Yeah, get on that, George.
This is what the people want.
Hey.
But it's also crazy to me how many people have been in like all of his movies. Because I mean, like Mad Max, obviously Mel Gibson, but then Tina Turner was in Beyond Thunderdome, and then Happy Feet has like freaking Hugh Jackman and Elijah Wood and so many other people, and then you get to Fury Road and it's like Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Nicholas Hoult, Zoe Kravitz. And then some other great actors too they just get thrown into the movies, and it's like, how does he keep getting all these people?
He is a nice guy, and he has a really big Rolodex.
He's just a kindly grandfather, it seems like, who's running around and having the time of his life, which I can give props to. I hope to be like him one day, honestly, because this guy just kind of seems like he's living the life.
He has a lot of fun making his films, and you can honestly feel that passion and energy coming through. Even in something silly like Babe 2, Pig in the City. He freaking wrote the first one. He wrote the first one, but he didn't direct it. He directed the second one, and you could really tell, honestly.
Kind of funny that he wrote the first one. That they were like, oh, we got a script in. Oh, what's the script? Babe, Babe the Sheep Pig. It's based on that book. Okay. Who wrote it? George Miller. What? He co-wrote it with the director, though, I guess, so that makes sense. But I mean,
and literally one of the best animal movies ever. So I love it.
It really is. It just kind of stands out. I mean, a lot of them stand out. So you gotta give him props for everything that he does. We're just kind of repeating the same thing over and over at this point. This probably won't be a super long episode, but he is a very great filmmaker who has a lot of great filmography to go through, and definitely people should check out his movies, obviously the Mad Max films, and obviously Happy Feet and all that stuff, because he's an interesting filmmaker, and he's probably one of the more interesting filmmakers of our times, to be honest, with the diversity that he has. Because they're going back on what I said earlier, there are definitely characters who have done, have sort of diverse filmmaking style. Like I would say, Matt was saying Sam Raimi did horror, and he did a superhero movie and some other stuff too. And the same can be said for George Miller. He's a lot like Sam Raimi. He's a lot like other filmmakers who just showcase that they can be very diverse in their stylistic approaches and their directions in movies that they do.
With a unique style, fun settings, and overall just a huge sense of atmosphere and interesting camera work, George Miller is definitely a very underrated director, but one who is very much appreciated in our eyes. And we look forward to whenever he does a new film. And I really hope he sticks with making more Mad Max spin-offs, because this world is so interesting. It has a whole lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he just keeps hammering them out one after another and really gets it going. So that would be great to see him do.
Yeah. So again, probably not a long episode this time, because there's only so much to say. But the dude is a nice guy, and I for one can't wait to see what he does in the future if he keeps going.
Here. I'm really hoping he does more movies. I mean, he has the Wasteland plan, which is going to be another Mad Max movie. So hopefully he does something there. It's just a matter of when he's going to do it, because the guy just keeps pumping them out one after another. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely will be a shorter one. We'll probably have a longer one for next time. But at the very least, again, George Miller, great director. Hoping he makes more stuff and very diverse in what he does. That's all we can really say. I mean, at the end of the day, that will do, Pig. That will do.
And now back to taking over our cult.
Do not, my friends, become addicted to water. It will take hold of you, and you will resent its absence.
I will say it is kind of weird that they just stuck a mask on Tom Hardy and were like, all right, get to work. And he was like, I already did this shit like 2 years ago when I was Bane. Why am I doing this again?
Tom Hardy having weird shit on his face is a requirement in every film he is in, whether it is Venom slime or a simple Bane mask.
I was born in the desert, molded by it. But yeah, what, you gonna do it too?
I am Gotham's Reckoning.
That's actually pretty good. This has just evolved into us doing funny voices at this point.
All right, thanks for joining. Thank you for
Thank you
joining
guys
us.
for joining us. We're happy that you enjoyed it, and hopefully you stick around for the next time. All right, see you guys.